Here are 101 facts about Ferrari. And yes, we'll be talking about both the car company and the law firm. Number 1. Ferrari invented the rear spoiler in 1961 because their 246 SP Formula One race car was as loose as Biden's grip on reality.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
Ferrari even tried to keep it a secret by claiming it was a protection device used to keep gasoline from splashing on the hot exhaust. Number 2. Most brands determine the price of their car by first doing a cost analysis, then studying its rivals to figure out what would be the best price. Well, Ferrari does it a bit differently. You see, when a Ferrari is finished and ready to be put into production, Ferrari's CEO alongside his most trusted advisors take the car for a joyride around the track, and they determine its price based on its performance. Basically, the more fun it is, the more you'll have to pay. Number 3. Psychologically, color plays a big role in determining what we see in our heads. For example, green, grass, orange, the Matrix, and red, Ferrari. It just makes sense, right? Well, surprisingly, Ferrari's official brand color is yellow, not red. But the reason why Ferrari has always been associated with red is because back in the day, the International Automobile Federation assigned colors to brands based on their country of origin, meaning that Ferrari had to race in red since it was Italy's official color, which in turn made red a very popular color option for their road cars and brand as a whole. Number 4. The Ferrari California was specifically built to target the US market. That's why the word California was written in the same font that the state of California used for their license plates. That same font was used again for the Portofino, since it replaced the California. Number 5. The LaFerrari's top speed was electronically limited to 217 miles per hour, even though it could go way faster. And you might be wondering, why the hell would anyone limit a hypercar? Well, Ferrari knew that if it went any faster, people would compare it to the Bugatti Veyron, which would make the LaFerrari look bad since it was more track-oriented. And you know what? They were completely right. Because when was the last time you heard someone mention anything about the LaFerrari other than its lap times? Number 6. When Ferrari was founded in 1939 by Enzo Ferrari, it was called the Auto Avio Costruzioni, because Enzo sold the rights to the Ferrari name alongside his racing team, Scuderia Ferrari, to Alfa Romeo in 1937. But Enzo was later able to rebrand to Ferrari in 1945 when his contract with Alfa Romeo expired. Number 7. In the 60s, Enzo Ferrari built the 250 GTO to participate in the Group 3 Grand Touring Championship. But homologation rules at the time mandated that 100 road-going versions needed to be built to partake in the championship, but Enzo was only able to build 39 units, so he decided to pull a fast one on the inspectors. How? Well, when the inspectors showed up, Enzo told them that the cars were stored in 3 different locations because they didn't have enough storage. And when the first 39 cars were inspected, Enzo personally took the inspectors to the second location. But before they got there, Enzo suggested to stop at his favorite coffee shop. And while Enzo was charming the officials, his team was transporting the cars to the second location and simultaneously changing their VIN numbers, making them brand new cars. Enzo repeated the same exact move again for the third location until all 100 cars were accounted for. Number 8. Is it pink? Well, with Ferrari, it's always no, because they have never painted any of their cars pink, and they have publicly stated that they will never ever have pink as an option for any of their cars. And rumor is, they'll blacklist you if you paint one of their cars pink. But again, it's just a rumor. Number 9. Ferrari's employees are not allowed to buy brand new Ferraris from factory, since Ferrari reserves their cars for the public due to high demand, which is like telling Stevie Wonder to not look at any clips. Like, why would they work at Ferrari if they could afford one? Number 10. Ferrari only started to make road cars as a way to fund their racing team. And not just that, Enzo genuinely didn't like his road cars or his customers. In fact, when he drove to work, which he rarely ever did, he drove one of his 3 Peugeots, a Fiat 128, or a Mini Cooper. Although he did own one Ferrari, which was the 330 GT 2+2 that he got near the end of his life and rarely ever drove. Number 11. Ferrari has the highest profits out of every other brand by a large margin. And just for comparison, Ford makes $3,900 per car, Mercedes makes $5,300, and Tesla makes $12,000, while Ferrari makes $192,000 per car. Number 12. Now if I ask you what this car is called, you'd probably say the Ferrari Enzo, which is wrong, because this car's official name is the Enzo Ferrari, since it was made to honor their founder. Same thing goes for the Ferrari LaFerrari, because it's just LaFerrari, and it translates to the Ferrari. Number 13. Ferrari wanted to save as much weight as possible when it came to the F40. That's why it had wires instead of door handles. It also didn't have any carpeting on its floor, because Ferrari decided to use the carpeting to cover the dash since leather was too heavy. And if you think that sounds too extreme, wait till you hear this. Ferrari only used 4 kilograms of paint, which is around 2 liters, and that made the F40's paint so thin that you could see the weaves in the Kevlar body underneath. But apparently, most of their customers didn't appreciate Ferrari's attempts at cutting weight, so Ferrari decided to repaint those cars with thicker coats, making F40s with original thin coats extremely rare and valuable. Number 14. Ferrari spends over $500 million in racing each year, which is $500 million more than what they spend in advertising. Yup, you heard that right. Ferrari's advertisement budget is zero, which is really impressive considering the fact that they're one of the strongest brands in the world alongside Google and Amazon. Number 15. In 1964, Ferrari applied to homologate the 250 LM, but the ACI, Italy's governing race body, denied their application because they found out about Enzo's little trick with the 250 GTO, which sent Enzo off the rails, and he swore to never race in Italy's color again. And at the American Grand Prix, he rebranded his race team to the North American race team, because it allowed him to race in blue instead of red. This move put the ACI under massive pressure in Italy, which is why they decided to give in to Enzo's demands, and they pretty much begged him to go back to red, even though they knew damn well that he was bluffing. But there was nothing they could do about it, because Enzo very simply outsmarted them again. Number 16. This is the 365 GT4 BB, which is beautiful, curvy, and classy at the same time. Although its name really doesn't add up, because BB stands for Berlinetta Boxer, but Berlinetta means front engine, which the 365 isn't, and Boxer refers to the type of engine which it didn't have. Well, as it turns out, Ferrari's designers had a crush on the French supermodel Brigitte Bardot, so they basically put her initials in there and tried to explain it later. Number 17. The 488 Pista has an Alcantara strap on the driver's side to close the door, but the passenger side has a built-in carbon fiber door handle. That's because Ferrari expects the driver to drive like a maniac and the passenger to be scared shitless. So they placed a handle there for the passenger to hold on to dear life. Number 18. The Ferrari F50, which cost $500,000 in 1995, didn't have a radio. But that's fine, because who needs a radio when your car sounds like this? By the way, I'll be doing this a lot. Number 19. This is the 700 horsepower 6.5-liter V12 Ferrari Puro Sangue, which is Ferrari's first 4-door 4-seater. Notice that I didn't say SUV, because Ferrari still refuses to admit that this 4,900-pound behemoth of a sports car is an SUV, even though it has the same ground clearance as the Santa Fe. Yeah, and Joe doesn't get lost in the bathroom.
What?
Different Joe. Number 20. Ferrari didn't allow dealers to showcase more than 3 used cars at a time, so people would think that nobody wanted to sell their Ferraris, helping them maintain their value. Number 21. Have you noticed that images of pre-production Ferraris never get leaked? Well, that's because Ferrari develops their cars on their own racetrack and not the Nürburgring. They're also the only manufacturer to have their own racetrack. Number 22. The F430 has a very weird off button for the climate control, and I want to explain how it works, but I genuinely don't understand it. So I'll let Doug confuse you even more.
If you have off pressed on, you can turn off the climate control by just adjusting the fan dial to the off position. The fan dial turns the climate control on or off.
Number 23. One of the many endearing quirks of the older Ferraris is that they were extremely mechanical, and you could feel every last bit of the car, including the window washers, because Ferrari used to place mechanical pumps at your feet, which you had to forcefully kick in order to wash your windshield. They also used window washer bags instead of reservoirs, which was really common in race cars back then. Number 24. In the 80s, Miami Vice needed a Ferrari Daytona for the show, but they didn't have the budget to buy it. So they had a replica built on a Corvette chassis for the first season, and it was an impressively convincing kit car. But as you can imagine, Ferrari didn't like that, so they decided to sue. Although they didn't sue the show who had the car built, they sued the coach builder who built it, and they gave the show 2 Testarossas free of charge. Which is like doing something super illegal with your wife because you're both terrible people, but you're the only one who ends up being convicted, so they make you take your life even though your wife was actually the one in charge. Number 25. If you've seen my Porsche video, you probably already know that Ferrari and Porsche have the same exact horse on their logo, but Ferrari's story is a bit more interesting. In the 1920s, Enzo Ferrari met Count Enrico and Countess Paolina, and they had a son called Francesco Baracca, a renowned World War I air ace who painted a black horse on the side of his plane for good luck. And in their encounter, Countess Paolina told Enzo, "Hey Ferrari, why don't you put my son's prancing horse on your cars? It'll bring you good luck." So Enzo decided to do just that. But since the horse was and always had to be black, Enzo added the canary yellow background, which was the color of his racing team Scuderia Ferrari. And that's how the iconic prancing horse logo came to be. Number 26. The Ferrari 812 Superfast has a towing mode. And no, you peasants, that doesn't mean it can tow stuff. It just means that you can turn off the alarm if the car gets towed. Number 27. Ferrari decided to not give the 599 a rear spoiler, and instead, they put spoilers on its C-pillars, because a traditional spoiler on a Grand Tourer would just look childish and stupid. And they were right, because the 599 looks absolutely drop-dead gorgeous. Number 28. While on the subject of plastic curves, Kim Kardashian was banned by Ferrari because she received a 458 as a gift from a Malaysian businessman, who later turned out to be a financial fraudster, which in turn prompted the US government to question Kim about her 458 and her relationship with the businessman. And as you can imagine, the headlines that week all had the words Kardashian, Ferrari, and fraudster in connection to each other, giving Ferrari a bad rep and earning Kim a spot on the naughty list. Number 29. Ferrari sells more hats than cars. Seriously, they only produce around 10,000 cars annually because Enzo Ferrari famously said, "We will build one car less than the market demands." That's why they've only made around 250,000 cars in 77 years. Just for reference, BMW produced 2.5 million cars last year alone, and Toyota has reportedly made over 350 million cars in 88 years. Number 30. You've all probably seen the movie Ford vs. Ferrari, and if you haven't, what the hell are you doing? Go watch it! Anyways, what the movie didn't tell you is that nobody hated Enzo like Carroll Shelby, because when Carroll was driving for Ferrari, he witnessed a lot of his friends die from Enzo's disregard of safety and his obsession with speed. But the straw that broke the camel's back was when Luigi Musso, who was also Carroll's best friend, died from a crash at the 1958 French Grand Prix, and Carroll always blamed Enzo for Luigi's death. That's why he built the Cobra, to spite Enzo. Number 31. The 1995 Ferrari F355 F1 Berlinetta was the first road car to have paddle shifters, which was extremely finicky and unreliable, mostly because it was the same automated manual transmission that Ferrari used in their F1 race cars 10 years prior in the 1980s. Number 32. Ferrari somehow managed to produce the early Testarossas with only the driver's side mirror, and those cars are now known as the single mirror, or more affectionately, the single nut. On the subject of nutting, this is how it sounds. Number 33. In 2020, Ferrari sued the Puro Sangue Foundation. Yes, they sued a charity, and like that wasn't already bad enough, that foundation was established 9 years before Ferrari made their not SUV. Basically, they took them to court because Ferrari didn't do their research, and since Ferrari kept the name, I'm guessing they won. Number 34. Ferrari is technically a Dutch company. I know, hear me out. In 2015, Ferrari NV was established in the Netherlands as the parent company of Ferrari SPA, because Ferrari was owned by the FCA, which was planning to merge with PSA to form Stellantis. But since Ferrari didn't want to be diluted, they convinced Fiat to help them escape the clutches of Stellantis by making it a public company and separating it from the FCA before the merger, which is something straight out of Enzo's playbook. Number 35. Ferrari trades on the New York Stock Exchange with the ticker RACE. Number 36. The Ferrari 456 was a comfortable, yet fast-as-hell Grand Tourer, but since Ferrari gave it 4 seats, they believed the rear passenger should also have AC, which makes sense. What doesn't make sense is that Ferrari funneled the AC through the damn doors, because for some reason, they couldn't figure out how to funnel it through the center console or under the seats like every other automaker. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the same company that invented the rear spoiler. Number 37. During World War II, Ferrari was ordered to build weapons for Germany because Italy and Germany were allies at that time. But Enzo intentionally didn't take the proper procedure to stop the weapons from being stolen by the other side, meaning he basically supported both sides of the war in case either won, so Ferrari could get off lightly and they wouldn't be destroyed. Number 38. Ferrari's logo has 2 versions, the rectangular logo, which is reserved for their street cars, and the shield, which is used for race cars. But pretty much every Ferrari road car has both versions. Because they decided to make the Scuderia badge an optional extra. Number 39. Ferrari has vowed to make internal combustion cars as long as possible, and they have said that they won't stop until the government forces them. But the one thing that concerns me is that they said, even if our cars go electric, they will still have Ferrari's signature sound. I just hope we don't get another car that sounds like Stephen Hawking whistling. Number 40. The 1987 Ferrari F40 became the fastest production car in the world when it hit a top speed of 201 miles per hour, breaking the previous speed record, which was held by the Porsche 959 at 198 miles per hour. Number 41. The Ferrari 250 GTO was the first car to be considered as art by the Italian courts in 2019, meaning that it's protected by copyright laws, and only Ferrari is allowed to create copies and replicas of the car. Number 42. In 2001, Ferrari sent its famous paint color, Rosso Corsa, to the European Space Agency to be tested for use on a journey to Mars. The sample color, codenamed Fred, which stood for Ferrari Red, underwent rigorous thermal and mechanical testing, only to be cleared for the space trip in 2019 on its 18th birthday. Number 43. Here's what Ferrari's horns sound like, since you've probably never heard it before. Number 44. In 1961, Ferrari's department managers got together and demanded the removal of Laura Dominica Garello from the company. But Enzo refused because Laura was his wife. And as the saying goes, you better not fire your damn wife. So when the managers all threatened to leave, Enzo very smartly told them to close the door on their way out. But that particular group of people were very spiteful, and they started their own car company, Automobile Turismo Esport, to compete with Ferrari both on track and in the showroom. And they put up a good fight for a couple of years, almost bankrupting Ferrari. But as usual, Enzo came out on top, and ATS went out of business in 1965. Number 45. For a long time, the Ferrari Dino was considered as the almost Ferrari, because many people didn't believe that it was true to the brand with its tiny V6. But in reality, the Dino was one of the most, if not most important car to Enzo, because it was built to honor his son Alfredo, Dino for short, who developed this engine right before his untimely death at age 24 due to muscle atrophy. And by the way, the Dino was both the first V6 and the first mid-engine production Ferrari. Number 46. This is Benedetto Vigna, Ferrari's current CEO, and when Vigna first came on the scene, he started interviewing his employees to get a better understanding of the company, which is when he came to the realization that most of them had never driven a Ferrari. So he took them on track and told them to go nuts, giving them a better understanding of how important their work is. He also gave every employee $2,300 worth of shares free of charge, which was really nice of him. It doesn't sound like a Ferrari move, but well done. Number 47. Ferrari has a program called the XX program, where they create insanely fast versions of cars that were already pretty damn fast to begin with. And it's way more exclusive than you think. For starters, you can only buy the car if Ferrari approaches you first, and they will only approach you if you already own several of Ferrari's track-only race cars. You also have to be accompanied by a full staff of race engineers at track events, most of which get organized by Ferrari themselves. But it doesn't end there. Ferrari highly encourages their owners to store their cars at the Ferrari factory because they're not road legal. Number 48. Now usually extra options on cars can get a tiny bit expensive, but on Ferraris they're a bit crazy. Let's use the F8 Tributo as an example. Remember the Scuderia badges that we just talked about? Well, those cost $1,800, the carbon fiber door handles cost $4,200, and if you want to get the whole carbon fiber trim package, that's an extra $37,000. And we're not done. The floor mats, yes, that's apparently an option, cost $1,300. Apple CarPlay is $4,000, and so is the passenger side screen. But perhaps the most ridiculous one is the little plate in the front which tells you what was equipped on the car, and that costs $2,000. I know I'm a peasant, but that's too much. Number 49. Ferrari's track or more performance-oriented special versions rarely ever have armrests, and when they do, they're intentionally made to not be all that comfortable, because Ferrari believes that their drivers should keep both hands on the steering wheel at all times. Number 50. One of the weirdest and most famous Ferrari lawsuits has to be the one involving Joel Zimmerman, aka Deadmau5, because for some reason he decided to customize his 458 around the meme Nyan Cat. This included custom badges, floor mats, license plates, and wrap. But Ferrari didn't like the fact that he customized the logo to say Ferrari, so they slapped him with a cease and desist letter in 2014, forcing him to take off his customizations and sell the car. That's when Lamborghini swooped in and gifted him a brand new Huracan, which later became the Lamborghini Huracan. What the f*** did I just read? Number 51. Ferrari's brand image is very strong, as you might have gathered from this video, but sometimes they can be just a bit extra, like how they spell their name in upper and lower uppercase in their manuals, just so the word Ferrari would stand out from the rest. Like, you've already sold the car, who's this for? Number 52. In 1976, Ferrari decided to offer the 400 with an automatic. But there was a catch. Ferrari didn't know how to build one, which is why they sourced one from GM, from the Buick LeSabre to be exact. Number 53. During the development of the LaFerrari, the engineers realized that they couldn't allow the front seats to be adjusted because the rails would add too much weight. And more importantly, the driver can disturb the weight distribution balance of the car, so they decided to make the pedals adjustable instead, which is very smart. Number 54. Every Enzo Ferrari has a badge that says 399 limited production, because Ferrari only made 399 units. At least that was the case before they built another one which was donated to the Pope, who then sold it off at a charity auction to help the victims of the 2004 Indonesian tsunami, meaning that 399 out of the 400 Enzos have a completely false disclaimer inside. Number 55. As most of you know, Ferruccio Lamborghini started making cars after he was insulted by Enzo, and that incident coincidentally gave birth to Pagani as well, because Horacio Pagani used to work at Lamborghini, which is where he learned enough about the auto industry to start his own company. Number 56. Ferrari's F1 team is the only team to have competed in every F1 season since its conception in 1946, and they're by far the most successful team as well, having won 16 constructors' titles, 15 drivers' championships, 812 podiums, 250 pole positions, and 244 race victories. But they haven't won any championships since 2008, although that might change now that they have Lewis Hamilton. Number 57. Last year, Ferrari patented a car that could be controlled with 2 joysticks, and that's all we know. Number 58. In the late 70s, Sergio Pininfarina designed a 4-door luxury sedan because he believed Ferrari should build a luxury sedan to compete with the Germans, and when he approached Enzo with his design, he was met with a lot of enthusiasm, because apparently Enzo was sick and tired of being driven around in a Fiat 131. So he immediately approved the project, and the V12 Ferrari Pinin was showcased to the public in 1980, who were just as impressed and enthusiastic as Enzo. But sadly, the car never saw production, because Fiat's then president Vittorio Guidella thought the car would distract people from Fiat's own products and get in the way of Fiat's journey towards financial stability. Basically, we didn't get this car. Sorry, some people didn't get this car because of brand politics, which is such a shame. Number 59. The center console armrest on some Ferraris is held down by a magnet and not a latch, which I have to say is genius. Why don't other cars have this? Number 60. On a Ferrari, Sport is the default driving mode. Seriously, you have Wet, Sport, and Race. And as far as we know, no internal combustion Ferrari has ever had an eco mode. But funny enough, they'll tell you when to shift to get the optimum fuel economy in your V12, which has to be mandated by the government because Ferrari would never do something like that. Number 61. In the 2019 season, FIA officials noticed how unreasonably powerful Ferrari's F1 cars were compared to the rest of the teams, and they knew damn well that Ferrari was cheating, but they didn't know how. So they opened a full-blown investigation, and after a couple of months of testing, the FIA was even more lost. So they told Ferrari, here's the deal. You tell us how you cheated now, saving us time and resources, and we'll go lightly on you. Realizing that the FIA is a particularly angry and spiteful bunch, Ferrari decided to very wisely take the deal, and the FIA punished them by having them run less fuel for the 2020 season, which hindered Ferrari and gave them their worst season in almost 40 years. But that was nothing compared to how badly they could have been punished. By the way, we still don't know how they cheated, since their deal was strictly confidential. Number 62. In 1985, a collector bought the catalog of a Ferrari 250 LM for $1,391, making it the most expensive brochure to date. Yes, that's right, my fellow peasants. We can't even afford a Ferrari brochure. Number 63. The production of the F40 was kept as a secret from everyone at Ferrari. In fact, only Enzo and a couple of his closest associates were brought in on the project, because Enzo didn't want too many cooks in the kitchen for what was meant to be the best Ferrari ever made. And yes, I know I've already talked about the F40, and I'll talk about it even more because it's my dream car. Here's how it sounds. Number 64. The Ferrari F430 was the first road-legal Ferrari to be built using the same computer modeling system as their Formula 1 team. It was also the first road-going Ferrari to have the Monotino dial. Number 65. The Ferrari 488 has a pit speed control knob, which allows you to set a speed limit when you're in the pit lane so you wouldn't violate track rules. At least that's what Ferrari wants you to think, but in reality, it's just cruise control. Number 66. The Ferrari Mondial's key would fold in half to protect your knee while driving, which is uncharacteristically convenient from Ferrari. Number 67. The 250 GT Luso's gas cap was located inside of the trunk because Ferrari didn't want to interrupt the lines of the body, making the refueling process way too stressful. Yep, that sounds like Ferrari. Number 68. The Ferrari 488 is the best-selling Ferrari of all time, with around 15,000 units sold. Number 69. A couple of years ago, a fashion designer called Philip Plein posted this image of his brand new shoes on his Ferrari 812 Superfast. And as you can imagine, Ferrari immediately sent him a cease and desist letter, saying he was infringing on their copyrighted material by putting their logo in his promotional pictures. But Philip decided to double down and go to court because he used Ferrari's logo in several other posts, meaning he would have to take all those down as well. But that proved to be a pretty stupid move, since he ended up paying Ferrari $350,000 in damages and over $25,000 in legal fees. Although I do have to say, I'm on Ferrari's side on this one. Philip knew exactly what he was doing. Number 70. The most expensive Ferrari ever sold at auction is the 1962 Ferrari 250 GTO, which was sold for $51.7 million. And it's the second most expensive car in the world. Also, out of the 10 most expensive cars sold at auction, 8 of them are Ferraris. Number 71. You know how certain brands are known for certain issues? Like how BMWs are known for leaking oil and Nissans for blown transmissions? Well, Ferrari has always been notorious for catching on fire, and for some reason, they still haven't figured it out. Because SF90s built between 2022 and 2024 all have an issue where the engine oil leaks onto the turbocharger, causing it to catch on fire. And as Cody would tell you, Ferraris and fire don't mix. But hey, at least they look good in red. Number 72. The 458 was one of the first cars to use the pre-filled brake system, which basically used electronics to push the brake pads as close as possible to the rotors, to compensate for wear and tear as time went by, making sure that the brake pedal always felt extremely responsive. Number 73. The Ferrari 812 Superfast is a hatchback, so is the GTC4 Lusso and the FF. Number 74. The reason behind Ferrari's success as a Formula 1 team all comes down to Enzo opting to take the bad guy role, because he believed that competition would bring out the best of people, which is why he would constantly pit the drivers against each other and play little mind games to strike the fear of unemployment in them. He also famously said, An insecure racing driver is a fast racing driver. Number 75. Ferrari introduced the 488 with its new aero feature called the S-duct in 2015, which was basically a glorified hole in the front of the car that increased downforce by as much as 15%. But this was not a new thing, since Ferrari had been using the S-duct on their Formula 1 cars since 2008. Number 76. There is an official Ferrari theme park in Abu Dhabi, which is very creatively called Ferrari World, and it's home to the world's fastest roller coaster that goes from 0 to 149 miles per hour in just 5 seconds. Number 77. The SF90XX is both the first road-legal XX car and the first road-legal Ferrari with a fixed rear wing since the F50. Number 78. This is the Ferrari 348, which was never a popular car amongst Ferrari fans, but it got even less popular in 1991 following Car and Driver's September issue where they put it head-to-head against the GMC Cyclone. And guess what? The Cyclone managed to beat it in both the drag race and the braking test. But to be honest, it was swayed in the pickup's favor because the Cyclone was all-wheel drive and the Ferrari was rear-wheel drive. They also didn't take them on a racetrack, which is where the 348 would have shined. But those arguments didn't matter, because at the end of the day, a $120,000 Italian supercar was beaten by a bone-stock $25,000 pickup truck. Number 79. On the F8 Tributo, the parking brake isn't applied, it's inserted, which is a very weird thing to rephrase as an automaker. Almost as weird as calling heated seats thermal comfort. Number 80. When Ferrari announced the fxxk, Mansouri very stupidly decided to build a body kit for it immediately after Ferrari's announcement. So Ferrari took them to court because in Europe, you can't create modifications for a car that was released until 3 years after its production. Both Ferrari and Mansouri kept dragging the case in court, and after 7 long years, Ferrari won the lawsuit in 2021. Number 81. When Ferrari built the FF, they wanted it to be the most practical Ferrari ever, meaning that they needed to make it all-wheel drive so the 650 horsepower 6.3-liter V12 hatchback wouldn't be too sketchy. But conventional all-wheel drive systems were too heavy, so Ferrari decided to put a second gearbox on the front axle, meaning the FF had 2 transmissions. But since the front gearbox was only a 2-speed, it would go into rear-wheel drive at 130 miles per hour in 5th gear. Number 82. For some bizarre reason, some Ferraris had their batteries located inside the front wheel well. There's a special place in hell for whoever designed it that way. Number 83. Ferrari was very proud to announce the 308 GTB with its light all-fiberglass body in 1975, but they seemed less proud when they went back to steel bodies a couple years later because their fiberglass bodies weren't all that sturdy, and they suffered from decomposition and body ripples. By the way, the steel body was only 26 pounds heavier than the fiberglass one. Number 84. A couple of years after the 458's debut, they started suffering from brake failure due to brake fluid leaking from the master cylinder, which was a serious problem because it would leak in such a way that you wouldn't see it on the ground, meaning you wouldn't know you had an issue with your brakes until you needed them. And when Ferrari North America caught wind of this, they decided to take immediate action by telling drivers to use the e-brake when their brakes went out. That's why they're currently being sued in a class action lawsuit by US drivers for failing to fix a dangerous brake defect. Oh, how the turns have tabled. Number 85. Enzo Ferrari couldn't get on aircrafts or elevators because he was extremely claustrophobic. That's why he rarely ever traveled to any races or events. Number 86. Maranello is widely known as the home of Ferrari, since that's where their headquarters and their race team is located. But Ferrari's headquarters was originally located in Modena, and it was later moved to Maranello in 1943 due to bombings in World War II. Number 87. Early FFs in California's used the Grand Cherokee's infotainment system, like the exact same one, which is frankly unacceptable given their $300,000 price tags. Number 88. Now this one is for the purists. The Ferrari 250 GT Lusso had a fake hood vent. Number 89. Okay, so every peasant and their grandma loves to hate on Ferrari for their unusual involvement in their owners' cars, but that hate is mostly unjustified because contrary to what people believe, Ferrari doesn't care how you customize your car, you just can't customize their logo, which makes sense. On the other hand, they do make you sign a contract that gives them the right of first refusal if you sell your car, but that's also not as bad as you think, because it just means that when you receive a purchase offer, you have to call up Ferrari first, And if they can match that price, you have to sell it back to them. If not, you can sell it to the original buyer. And as far as we know, if you fail to abide by this contract, the only legal action Ferrari can take is blacklisting you. But we're not lawyers, so just ignore that last part. Number 90. The 488 has a retractable rear window, so you wouldn't have to put the top down to hear this. Number 91. The SF90 is front-wheel drive. Seriously, in all-electric mode, only the two front wheels provide power. Number 92. Ferrari has a restaurant in Modena called Ristorante Cavallino, and it was established by Enzo in 1950 because he wanted a restaurant to embody the spirit of Ferrari, which it does, not in speed, but in price. Number 93. Every Ferrari takes at least 3 months to be built from start to finish. Number 94. Some of you older folks might remember this episode from Top Gear, where the Stig took his helmet off and it was Michael Schumacher underneath. But that obviously wasn't true, since the real Stig was Ben Collins, and Michael Schumacher was only there because the car they drove around the track that week was the Ferrari FXX, and Ferrari refused to allow anyone other than Michael to drive it. Number 95. The first road-legal Ferrari and the first car to have the Ferrari badge is the 1947 125S, which had a single-cam 1.5-liter V12 that made 118 horsepower. Only 2 of these were produced, and only 1 remains in existence, since the other one was scrapped in the 1950s. Number 96. In 1995, a man by the name of David Kay wrote Piero Ferrari and asked if he could build a Ferrari-inspired motorcycle to honor Enzo's love of bikes. Piero gave him the green light, and David built the Ferrari 900cc, which, as the name suggests, had a 0.9-liter 4-cylinder air-cooled engine that made 105 horsepower. It took David and his son 3,000 hours of labor to build this beautiful bike that's now worth around $300,000. Number 97. Every Ferrari engine is hand-built, except for the valve mechanics, which are built by 2 robots because that process requires extreme precision. But why am I telling you this? Well, Ferrari calls those 2 robots Romeo and Juliet because they work so closely together. It's just a movie waiting to happen. Number 98. Ferrari has their own form of AMG, which is called Novitec. They're also the only tuning company endorsed by Ferrari. Number 99. To this day, the fastest Ferrari ever built is the 2009 FXX Evoluzione, which went from 0 to 60 in just 2.5 seconds and had a top speed of 249 miles per hour. But do you know what's the craziest part? The FXX Evo is apparently able to reach its top speed in just 40 seconds. Number 100. The Ferrari F40 was the first production car in the world to be entirely built out of composite materials like carbon and Kevlar. Number 101. Now I've put this fact at last because it's less of a Ferrari fact and more of a freaky coincidence, because this is Enzo Ferrari, and he passed away in 1988. This is Mesut Ozil, a Turkish-German football player who was born in 1988. Now I personally don't believe in reincarnation, but this makes a pretty good case for it. And yes, I intentionally didn't say soccer because this is not football. It's handball more than anything, since you mostly use your hand. With that harsh realization, we're done. Make sure you subscribe to see more.